With the return of the Merlin banner in JP, people might ask, should I still roll for Merlin? Even though Koyan Sky of Light basically took over him as the best Buster support in the game? Well, there might be a couple reasons why you might still want to roll for Merlin. Now, first of all, Merlin has hard defense. Now, Merlin can give your entire team a turn of invul at the press of a button. Now, that is extremely powerful. Usually, team-wide invuls or evades or solemn defense, these types of effects, are reserved to MP only. Look at characters like Scotty, Castoria, and John. This effect being on a skill obviously has its pros, where it is instantaneous and you don't really have to worry about charging your MP up just to prepare for your enemy's MP. Now there's also weaknesses to that, which is that it is way less loopable compared to effects like this that are tied to MPs. So, do it as you will. Has its pros and cons. Secondly, Merlin can provide massive burst damage. Merlin's third skill, Hero Creation, gives everything a 100% crit up and a 50% mana burst for a singular turn. Now, this is not as powerful compared to when it first came out, because there are characters that can also give 100% crit up, namely characters like Ashia Domon, but those are, comes with a restriction where you have to be chaotic evil to get the full 100%. I do believe he is still the most universal 100% crit giver, but it falls short in the duration department, where it only lasts one turn, which can be a bit of a detriment compared to characters like Goman. There is also the recent Prince of Massive Bursts, aka Oberon, but Oberon's burst can only be used on the last turn, as it basically shuts down your DPS after you use it. So, compared to Merlin's relatively no penalty burst damage, I think, Merlin's still more flexible in this department. So, in challenge quests or boss killing, sometimes you still need massive damage, and, in cases if you specifically need face card damage to deal with stuff, Merlin is still probably your top pick. Finally, Merlin is, in my opinion, the best perpetual buff giver. With his MP, he can provide the entire team with stars, heal, and MP charge. This is basically all you want in FGO, when you're playing. These effects are extremely powerful and they can sustain your team for a very long time. Plus, his MP is loopable, very loopable, with his own MP effects helping it loop, making your team snowball into something that is quite unstoppable. Now, there are other characters that can do that, such as Miyu, or in a lesser sense, Tamamo. But these characters do not provide the other stuff that I mentioned previously. Tamamo does provide, sort of enemy control in the form of Curse, which it does drain their MP gauge, but it doesn't block it, so it only delays the inevitable by a singular turn. And Miyu does not give any hard protection, and her buff is only tied to herself, so if she somehow dies, there is no more value to be had for your other teammates. So in my opinion, Merlin is still the best, overall perpetual buff giver when you want to do a stall team or just a relatively slow team. So, in conclusion of this short video, in my opinion, Merlin's strength does not lie in the individual stuff that he can provide, but more so in the fact that he can provide all of that in a singular servant. I think it is actually quite important to have to fulfill multiple roles as a singular servant because of cost problems and the fact that you can't really have more than 3 characters on the front line at the same time. So having a character that can do multiple jobs is quite important, especially in quests where either you have a forced NPC support or that you are not allowed to use duplicates, which have been popping up recently. So yeah, I think Merlin as a Buster exclusive support does not you know, is no longer the top dog in that department, I should say. But he is still one of the most well-rounded characters in the entire game, very akin to Castoria, and we all know Castoria is basically the best character in the game right now. So yeah, I still think Merlin is a worthy role, especially if you're new or you want you want an extra piece of the puzzle to fill in your team to complete, you know, your setup. I think Merlin will fit that role quite nicely. So thank you for listening to this short video. This is just something that I kind of whipped up at a whim. But, you know, I think people should know more about Merlin, and people should understand that Merlin is still a very strong servant despite his age.